and welcome to another episode of Gravel Union Talks. The digital fire is crackling, the glasses are full. I think Tom has a wine at hand and I'm having a beer. Cheers there. Spirits are up. We're ready for a friendly gravel chat here at the Gravel Union platform. It's episode number 7 of Gravel Union Talks, an initiative of gravelunion.cc. My name is Carlo Van Nistelrooy. Behind the scenes director Ollie Townsend is busy on the switches. We're running a little late, but everything turned out just fine. Our very special guest of today is Tom Ritchey, one of the founding fathers of off-road riding, world-renowned frame builder, bike component designer, fabricator, and former US national road team rider. Californian Tom was inspired by his father, Tom Jr., to build wheels and repair bikes in his teens. We tried to get our tires fixed, but Tom was making bikes already. A talented road racer in the 70s. He was great friends with engineer and gravel riding enthusiast Joost Brandt. We are talking 70s here. Silicon Valley was still called the Bay Area. Palo Alto, near San Francisco, was the incubator of off-road cycling. Stanford graduate engineering and pioneering rider Joost was the big inspiration to Tom when inventing, designing and producing bike parts. Without exaggeration, we know that mountain biking, adventure and gravel riding wouldn't be the same without Tom Ritchey. Building among the first mountain bikes, initially sold by Gary Fisher, inventing the world-famous Logic butted steel tubing, designing the Unicrown tapered fork, pioneering the use of road tire technology in MTB tires, such as folding bead and high thread count, pioneering the use of a 2x9 drivetrain, the list of first evers never stops. As Tom is still improving the cycling experience for us every day. Tom runs a business, bike and component producer Ritchie, but never set out to make it big in business. For him, technology is the driver. To keep us riding, his primary goal. At 64, he's still riding his bike regularly, and maybe more than most of us. Over 15,000 kilometers per year. Many times, he's out on his gravel tandem, rides with his wife Martha. I just found out that there's even a Martha's Vineyard, and that there's a Pinot Grigio with the name Tandem, which is awesome. He was inducted into the Mountain Bike Hall of Fame in 1988. Inducted in the US Bicycling Hall of Fame in 2012. So we're talking legend here. I thought every bike was a gravel bike, is one of his famous quotes. We will chat for 45 minutes with Tom around the campfire. You can expect an insight into the history of off-road riding, Tom's inspirations and his views on where we are heading with our beloved gravel bikes and rides. Feel free to give us some feedback through the live feed or by email, info@gravelunion.cc. We will take questions and tips. If you have any idea for future guests, just let us know. Tom, it's a longer introduction than normally, but we're very glad to have you on this episode. Well, before talking about the history of Ritchie and of Tom Ritchey as a rider and a component producer, I have a few short questions where I want to have a short answer, if possible. First, we are drinking. I'm having a Quaremont. You're having a? I think we lost connection with Tom just at the moment. I'm sorry, we lost you for a bit.
Yeah. Your question was, what am I drinking?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not getting it, but I will have a beer in a couple.
Okay, thanks. And what is the book you are currently reading?
Well, right now I'm reading. This was logging. It's my alter ego is actually a woodchuck. So this house that you're seeing the background of is a house I built, all wood that I milled and cut down from trees that are here on the ranch.
Okay. We
Well,
always have a big debate question where we ask people to join in and give us our view on things. The Gravel Union big debate question of today is, we will get back to that later, Tom, at the end of this episode. Uh,
yeah.
so people viewing, please answer the question, which do you use when riding on gravel trails? A heart for using seat pack and a thumbs up for using a bar bag. We'll come back with the tally later on. I have another a couple of questions for you to shortly answer. What do you prefer, gravel riding, bike packing, or racing?
Uh, Gravel riding.
Are you what's your preference, riding alone or with friends?
Uh, Very select group of friends riding alone.
What's your preferred wheel size?
700.
700. Do you prefer electronic shifting or mechanical shifting?
Mechanical.
I thought I knew that. What's the tire size that you use on your gravel rides?
Uh, 28 to 30.
Okay, okay. Do you plan your routes or you just go out there and see whatever happens?
Oh, a lot of times I just see what happens. I do have more aches and pains in my body, so basically I need options.
There's always a plan B and plan C.
Yeah.
This is an interesting question. How many bikes do you own?
Phew. I own Martha and I own about 8 tandems.
And the 8 tandems alone.
And on the 8 tandems, yeah. So we have a lot of tandems to choose from, depending upon what we're doing, on and off road, more gravel, mostly road, whatever. The on the bike side, I would say I probably have 3 or 4 go-to bikes that are unique to what I like to ride, depending upon if I'm also the same doing off-road mainly, or doing gravel or road riding mainly. So anyway, yeah, that's my answer.
Okay, thank you. Well, what we're going to do now is you sent us some great pictures from your history, and what I wanted to ask is just, you see the pictures, guide us through your history. This is the first picture that you sent. This is a young Tom Ritchey working on a tandem, as I see. Tell us a little bit more about the Ritchie history.
Well, the reason why I sent you that picture, other than I don't have many pictures to send, is that is a garage in Palo Alto that I started out in, and I was high school kid, just going into high school actually when I built my first frame, and by the time of that picture, we were leaving Palo Alto. My family was leaving Palo Alto, and I was 18 in that picture. So that was at the end of that period of time. And you all know that I build with fillet brazing, and so the interesting thing about that picture is, of course, I started with lugs, like every frame builder, and I started actually taking apart broken lug bikes, all of course, European origins, and learning how to repair lug bikes, and thereby making a decision for myself after I repaired my own bike. I bought a very affordable $50 broken Cinelli when I was 15 years old, and after repairing that and looking at what was inside, so to speak, kind of understanding how the building process was in a very reverse thought process. I said, I can build a bike if this is what I see inside. And so that was the lug. Those are the lug years, and I continued even well beyond this period of time, beyond the fillet brazing period of time in the lug in making lug bikes. Lug bikes were very popular in the 70s, and it really took a lot of shaking up the industry to get people to believe that someone could make a naked bike without lugs and feel secure on it. So I was growing my company, growing my business. At this point in time, at 18 years old, in my senior year of high school, I built over 200 frames along with going to school. So it was a significant business endeavor for me, so the only reason why I make that point is probably only about 50 bikes were fillet braze. 150 or so were all lug, and really the unique thing about this is that fillet brazing gave me the ideas to explore geometries and ways of building a bike that you could only build without lugs. So, for example, this tandem had diameters and angles and laterals and intersections and joints that there just wasn't any such thing as a lug that was available to use for that. So there was no other way to what I wanted to do, which was, if you look at the picture, it's a double set of laterals, and what you have is intersections that as I said, don't use lugs. So really, in the diameters, so the geometry and all the things, the eccentrics and things like that. There's only I don't even know anyone in the United States that had built a tandem at that time. I'm sure there were, but they were all figuring out how to do it with lugs. And I don't even know so anyway, my point is that fillet brazing gave me the ideas to go beyond in a lot of ways that made it very easy for me when the idea of building my first mountain bike came along, because again, it was different angles, different tubing diameters. The bike that I built for Joe, the tandem I built for Joe and Otis Guy, of course, double laterals like this tandem, and it was the laterals that gave Joe the inspiration of making his first mountain bike with laterals. So that's a little bit of my Palo Alto year kind of beginning and kind of what was kicking around in my brain.
Mm-hmm. You were mentioning Joe Brees, probably.
So, yeah, I don't know. Did I cut out there?
Yeah, but
I did.
This is the next picture of you in front of the peloton. I think you're on a way of winning a crit here.
Yeah, that was one of the few criteriums that I won. Usually, it was a road race that I was really good at and dominated on the West Coast. So that's Monterey butterfly criterium, and that I was still a junior, and that was a pack of seniors behind me.
Wow. And that was your Cinelli, was it your own a bike that you made yourself, that you rode on?
No, that was of course a bike. I raced only my bikes. The Cinelli was in the very beginning before I got into racing, and was looking for a good bike, and it was the only thing I could afford. I think I was just turning 15, and so I repaired the bike and built it up on the cheap. And
but you retired because you were a talented racer. You even made it to the U.S. national team. but you retired from racing quite early. Had that?
Yeah. The idea of racing was wonderful, but there was a period of time in the 70s when in California they stopped allowing road races, and my specialty as far as winning and being really I guess uniquely gifted in that way was road racing, and really the beginning of the sport of off-road and mountain bike was, I've talked about this in many other places, was really the California Highway Patrol shutting down all the road races, and our our beloved sport was quarantined into criterium race, and so it was a lot more dangerous, a lot more difficult to win and break away, and tactic wise was basically a completely different type of racing that the canceling of all these road races threw us into. And so the picture is kind of a unique picture for me, because I eventually figured out how to sprint and break away and things like this, but that wasn't really what my focus of training was. My focus of training was winning the long races, the 100-mile races. And so eventually I just kind of burned out on criteriums and decided I was more of a lover of cycling than I was a lover of racing.
And then you also changed over to outdoor cycling or outdoor adventures more, or did you do that together? Racing
that was the unique thing about our situation in California that most maybe have heard me talk about, but the idea was that we had the best yard of any probably place in the country to ride in, and year round. So for us, we could go to your cruise by lives. Yopes rode the most. A Yopes ride in the wintertime was just as good as any training ride that you could ever go on. Matter of fact, if there was a road race on the same, some of us that were on the circuit that were the top riders would make a call to one another and say, "What are you doing this weekend? What are you up to? Are you going to race the Berkeley Hills road race or Patterson Pass road race or some other road race? Or are you going to ride Yopes' ride?" And I remember one of my racing buddies infamously said, "I'm going to race the road race. I'm not in good enough shape to ride the Yopes ride."
All right. So, we have another. I think we have a picture of Joop's ride a little later. Oh, this is the picture of Joop's, I think.
No, actually, that's Joop's taking the picture of us.
So he's not on the picture.
Yeah, and now there's a picture I sent you with him in it, I'm pretty sure, but he is very tall, 6'4", very strong rider. Would basically challenge us in both his long distance strength, but also his downhilling ability. It was really quite a bike hand. And our senior, all of us were in we're in our teens. He was 40, I think, when I first met him. Close to 40 when I first met him.
But he did.
But no, that was that picture is up on Loma Prieta in the Santa Cruz Mountains, overlooking the Monterey Bay in the background, and that's Sterling McBride, McLaughlin, and myself, and a number of riders. Yeah.
Joost Brand is a name that we come across more often when reading about the first years of road riding. It was a big inspiration to you, not only taking you out on rides, but also challenging to get the best out of your ideas and your materials, your components. Can you tell us a little bit more about the role that Joost played for you?
Well, it was, it was not love at first sight with me and Yobes, because I was young. I was probably overconfident, and he was a classic German engineer. His dad was a professor at Stanford, and and Yobes had been, what Yobes was twice my age. Probably one of the things that he was most renowned for was not only his off-road rides, but him braking about every break. So it wasn't uncommon to break a crank axle or crank or hub axle or pedal axle, and have his share of maintenance issues and problems. And so when he saw me coming along and riding with him on a bike that I built, that was starting I was starting to experiment on the component side with my own stand, certain other parts. Um, his eyebrows were about as raised as you could get, and he was very that he would take us out in the middle of nowhere, and Ritchie would break his bike. And so it took a while for me not to break my bike, and be somebody that he felt comfortable with. And so a year or so went by, and it was something that he was very, I guess I earned his respect from a rider perspective and from a designer perspective. But that first year was a year, more than a year, that he made sure that I knew everything he knew about product and product design. And of course, I was a sponge at that age. And so it was many conversations, many bike rides of conversations, many broken parts for conversations. And I was into learning as much as I could about everything I could know on the cycling realm. And he'd been all over the world. He'd been in Cinelli's shop and other people's shops in Europe, and he the most of anyone that was in my life when it came to cycling, and not to mention his renown for his own ability to ride at a very high level and break just about everything. So Jobs introduced me to people in the bike industry, introduced me to DT Switzerland and the people there. And by the time I made it over to Europe and started to ride in the Alps and stuff, I was getting to know, at that point in the 80s, people that were, at the well-known end of the bike industry.
Great man. This is an ad, probably end of the 80s, early. What are we looking at, Tom?
This is early. This is like 1980. This is, by the way, let me back up the very beginning. Your description of Gary Fisher selling my first bikes. It was Gary and Charlie Kelly. They were business partners that I allowed to distribute and sell my first mountain bike. So just to correct that.
Okay.
But you have to realize that I'd already built. By the time I built my first mountain bike, I'd already built about 1,000 bikes, road and touring and cross and tandems and so many different bikes. So it was a really new thing at that time. So they were uniquely in an area. I don't want to go off too far into the weeds here, but when Joe Breeze came down and ordered his tandem, and I was talking to Joe about building a clunker. At that time, that's what they were calling it. He went home, and because he runs into Gary, they were neighbors or close by. I got a call the next day from Gary and saying, if you build one, can you build one for me? So that's the genesis of that, knowing that there was customers up in Marin. He worked at a bike shop, and he was, and so I didn't tell him when I finished the bike. A month or so later, I built an extra one, and I said to him, well, if you know of anyone that wants to buy another one that was just like our two, Gary and I were the same size, so I built three the same size, 22-inch, and he responded very positively. He said, yeah, I know I can sell that. So that was the beginning of allowing him and Charlie to sell mountain bikes, or sell at that time ballooners, and then they after the first 10 or so bikes, they coined the name. Someone came into the shop, or somebody, I think in the bike industry, came in. They said something like, that's a mountain bike, and they coined the name mountain bike, and then they became that entity that I sold my mountain bikes through.
Okay. By the way, this is 1982. I just got a message of Ollie saying it's 1982. So
yeah. And so that was a unique thing at the time. Road Track magazine, the reason why that's a quote underneath there, Road and Track mag had just done an article of the best off-road vehicles, and I think Range Rover won, but they for just the fun of it included the Ritchie mountain bike in their best off-road vehicle in Road and Track magazine.
We saw a picture of you on a gravel bike going uphill, and what we noticed is that, I don't know when this is, but this is a flared bar. So you were way ahead, all the time.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't that long ago. That was about 5 years ago.
Oh, so
at the Lorica, down here in Paris.
Well, I have a viewer's question on Eroica. So let's throw that in at this point. Is it true that you broke your leg at Eroica descending fast in an effort to drop someone who was annoying you? Is that correct?
Well, I definitely broke it going downhill. I don't remember being annoyed by anyone, but that was coming around a turn, and a rancher on a dirt road didn't even know the event was going on, and he was coming up with a very large pickup truck, and I went over the hood of it.
So did you have many injuries riding in accidents, or?
Well, that was one of my worst, actually. That was a broken tibia plateau at my knee. So it was a bunch of metal and fixing that one. I've had a couple recently. In the last 7 years, I've gone over the hood of 2 cars, all in relatively peaceful environments, which is kind of a new thing for me. But I'm not quite riding that 15,000 anymore. I'm down to riding about 10,000, but some of it has to do with knee injuries and other injuries.
Okay. Well, let's move on. Oh, this is a log cabin picture again. Is this your early years?
So this is shop number 3. So shop number 1 was Palo Alto. Shop number 2 was the Menlo Park uh, picture that I sent you, and then and I got married in 1979, and we sold the Menlo Park house, and we moved to the country, and the first thing I built was the shop so that I could continue my business, and then I built the log house. Yeah. Did you hear me?
Yeah, sure, sure. I was just watching the picture and seeing you.
Oh,
I heard that you have a unique style of Philly brazing. What's so unique about your style? Because I know most people use a jig, but you freestyle.
no, no. I think that the process is, first of all, a very un. It's a it's an um, it's an undocumented process how you fill a braise. Everyone imagined it after I started doing it to be done in a certain way, and so no, I have very nice holding equipment for my adjustable jigs that I made back when I was 18 years old. I was visiting Albert Eisentraut's shop when I was I think 17, and I saw some of his tooling that he had made, and I was impressed. And I made some similar tooling. But the process of tacking, basically making a tack so that you can take it out of the jig so that you can braze it like I'm doing in the picture, was a combination of using gravity and other things to create a low temperature and very high performance fillet. And that was some things I've talked about. I don't know. I did a couple of videos in England when I visited on it. But basically, the thing that people didn't realize with fillet brazing is from my very beginning in repairing that Chinelli, and looking back at the business of frame building, in order to use a lug, you have to overheat the joint to get penetration. You just can't heat it to the temperature that things are hot enough to have a molten differential of brass flowing through the tubing. You had to overheat, and therefore you need fluxes and all kinds of things to help you control the. And you also had the heat effect an area that was to the extent that if you take pictures of the work that's being done in lug brazing, you can see how large of an area you need to heat in order to get a traditional lug joint to work. And even then, you didn't know what was going on inside because you couldn't see that you were cooking the joint to the point that the flux wasn't working and weren't getting any flow. And so the story of manufacturing is very kind of primitive, because it's not the tube is doing the work anymore, it's the lug is doing the work. And lugs are designed such that you don't even have to have penetration. All you have to have is a tiny bit of penetration at the edge of the lug, and the lug is twice as thick as the tube, so that the lug is actually doing the work. And one of the reasons why lug frame construction failed miserably is that there's such a wide range of skill that can build a lug. And so you would get some that could do it well, and some that didn't do it as good. They overheated it, and so the long and short of that that paradigm and that learning process for me was, if I learned to join a tube with fit and kept my temperature down, which I could heat effect the smallest amount of area and produce a joint that was adequately strong, but the end result was the actual tubing was not affected by the overheating of the lugged joint. And it took years for people to accept what I was hypothesizing and had learned and kind of developed. And so what you see there in that picture is basically a technique of using a very close flame. So if you look at how close the tip of the flame is, which you can't it's hidden in that image, I'm as close as a TIG welder would be in TIG welding a piece of flame, but half the temperature of a TIG welder. And so what I knew about steel tubing and what I knew about thin-walled structures is that if I could keep my temperature down, if I could keep my heat effective area down, I was going to end up making a better bike, a stronger joint than using a lug. And so that's been my philosophy and my signature kind of from a frame builder, historical perspective throughout this time, 50 years after building my first bike.
Mm-hmm. This is a picture of you as probably as a sponsor, because this is the Ritchie team.
This is the Ritchie team in '90. Yeah, this was the first year after the sport became a professional sport, and the Ritchie team was in existence since 1983. There's other pictures that predate this, but it was an amateur team. Of course, the sport was amateur, so really the idea of a pro sport had grown up at this year in '90 at Purgatory in Colorado, to the point that it was attracting professional level athletes and professional sponsorships. And that was the year that Thomas came to race, and from Switzerland, and the other riders there were all Americans from previous years riding with the Ritchie team. And I was the sponsor. I wasn't the manager. Dave McLaughlin was the manager. He was somebody that was on that Yopes ride. That image up on the hill in Loma Prieta, and he was a cross racer that had just gotten back racing world champs in Europe, and had run into Thomas, and it resulted in Thomas being kind of this young upstart cross racer that had just won the junior world championships, and said, I think I want to go to America and try this mountain bike thing. And that was just a couple of months before this photo was taken.
This is at the 1990 World Championship, wasn't it? This is you standing proudly on top of a rock with one of your bikes.
Yeah, that's actually earlier than that other photo. That's up on Skyline. So the year before, the Amateur World Championships was in Mammoth Mountain, California, and the bike that I'm holding was the bike Don Myra won the Amateur World Championships on. and so it's a little contextual. That was the beginning of kind of the Ritchie years of World Cup domination, where every year we were winning World Cups and World Championships for many years to come.
Another Team Ritchie picture. It's like more pictures.
Yeah, these were fun card type shots that Dave McLaughlin got the riders. In Peter Steubenrock, the road rider, I had I don't know if the name Bobby Julich means anything to you, but
yes.
But I was also sponsoring a 4-man road team. It was Carmichael's national team that he was trying to hold them from going pro, and I sponsored. Dave and I went out of the box and started a women's team and a men's team that was the national. It was the U.S. national team, and we were a sponsor for that for both men and women. During that time, Lance was on that team in the early years, and a number of other. Cappy was on that team. Anyway, it was a very pivotal year in the world of American cycling.
Yes, it certainly was. Most of the names that you just mentioned are familiar to everybody. We're looking at a stool from your workshop. It seems to be used heavily.
Yep.
Why did you send in this picture?
Yeah, it's hard to give up something that has thousands and thousands of bike miles on it. That's what this stool represents, being heated over and over and over again and brazing on top of it. And I just keep it around for conversation purposes, and I continue to use it to this day.
And what is your favorite object in your workshop, your tool, something that you have been carrying around all your life? What is your favorite object?
My hammer. No. It would have to be my set of my torch set, and with my glasses, the oval glasses that you see in that picture, and I would say my modified belt sander that is part of my way of finishing the fillet after I'm done with it.
I have a reader's question that I can throw in at this point. You still work for you produce your bikes. You have a role in the company of Ritchie. What is your main job focus? Is somebody asking within the Ritchie company?
Well, I still build bikes, so it's not that I ever stopped building bikes. I build prototypes, and I build personal bikes, and I build the tandems for Martha and I and stuff. So, but it's very, very infrequent that one ends up leaving my shop for somebody commercially. So, the bikes that you see that are in the marketplace are bikes that are made by very, very long companies that I have a long history with, that in the beginning just used my tubing, and I got to know them because they were my customers, and they proved to me that they were capable of making a good bike, and so there's a number of companies that still make my bikes now for Ritchie, and it is very, deep and long, and from the beginning.
Well, what is your
Well,
what do you do within the company? Because you're not in the
so what?
management.
Okay, so let me. I'm sorry, I didn't finish the answer in the correct way that you phrased it. I am head of product development. So um, the company is multifaceted. It of course is a global company that has a lot of different shop and I mean there's a European Switzerland entity that has a number of people, and my CEO that I appointed a couple of years ago is in Switzerland. I've got an American division which is the original mothership called Ritchie Design, and then I have a company in Asia called Ritchie Taiwan, and that is where all my sourcing for the most part comes from, where the frames are made, and the product development side is carried out where the testing machines are, and so I am on a daily, almost a 24/7 connection on the product development of and the process of testing to this day. So my job really hasn't changed for the last since 30, 40 years. It's still the same job.
Can you tell us a little bit more about a project that you're currently working on, or is it top secret?
You know, I really can't tell you anything in particular. I'd say in a general sense, the way that that's going on for me is there's a lot of ideas that I wanted to do for years and years and years. And one project I'm working on right now is probably a 40-year-old concept. And these ideas are probably, fantasy jobs or fantasy ideas, and a lot of people history, if they've been in the business as long as I have. And really what it is technology, are there materials that make it possible that weren't in existence 5, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, back 40 years ago when I originally conceived it. And that's really what is exciting to me in product development is that whether it be, certain compounding or other materials that hold promise to create the next generation of concepts that haven't, been possible. That's what I'm always on the lookout for. That's what I'm always trying to figure out from a material design perspective, if it exists yet, if there's a cost-benefit relationship to it. And so that's probably, a lot of my time is just in looking for solutions, manufacturing solutions to things.
Well, I just got a message of our director, Ollie, that I'm sorry that we only have 10 minutes left, so I'll try to speed things up a bit. We were curious watching this picture is helmet design. Is this this is an old school helmet? Can you tell a little bit more about that?
What? Yeah, I mean that's just my old helmet that I've had all these years, and actually it was a present from Eric Hayden given to me when he retired. It was his personal helmet. So I don't, people know that I don't use a helmet unless I'm forced to wear a helmet. And I enjoy the freedom of not wearing a helmet. I figure at my age have somewhat earn the right to use whatever helmet I want to use, and that's the helmet I use.
This counts for a helmet. I know them from the early days. We first take a few readers' viewers' questions. Maybe you could ask Tom to talk a little bit about the coffee bike project for a bit. The coffee bike project, Tom.
Well, it's a very practical thing to talk about, and that is for years and years and years I would go to trade shows and to be kind of at the cutting edge of technology in the bike industry, and when I went over to Rwanda in 2005 and saw how amazing their bikes, how cool and important bike use was, and how amazing their wooden bikes were in terms of I'm building a bike this way in the United States, and they're building a wooden bike in Rwanda in a completely organic and valuable way to their economy, to them being, with all kinds of, it was their pickup truck for their dirt roads. It was how they got market and how they made a living, and the value of that bike. It inspired me to kind of think about, man, I've been doing this my whole life, and I'm trying to improve the bike, and the bike is so improved as it is. And then every time I make a little improvement, I think, it's going to make a difference. But in reality, they were still, handcuffed to supply and being able to have something that ever evolved for 100 years. Their colonial bike were broken and re-welded and fixed over and over again, and they didn't really have access to any of the things that we in the first world have access to, and they didn't know what it was. They didn't know what a lot of things were, and they were, anyway. It's a hilly country. It's a country that you can't really pedal up hardly anything with their single speed bikes, and so my goal was to challenge myself to develop something that was going to be the next generation of potential colonial bikes and so the long wheelbase and the gears and the simple way that the components could be used and could be repaired was my goal. And which was, I've got to be able to make it affordable, and the idea, the coffee industry that was so much money that they were seeing that they had the ability to and grow their family businesses was Rwanda, and they were a unique, able to grow a really high quality of coffee, and the problem is that they did quality coffee, but they couldn't get it to market in time, and so got it to market in time, they would actually be able to benefit enough that they could afford a bike, afford something that was going to improve their lives and their family. And so I worked with Texas A&M. I worked with the coffee industry people that were an organization called Pearl, and I proposed and prototyped it and went back to Rwanda and demonstrated it, and they got that, and that was that. And ultimately, we made 4,000 of these coffee bikes, and people still come back from Rwanda and say, I saw your bike, I saw this, I saw that. So it's cool to know that it's still being used.
That's a great project. I hate to interrupt you, but we have to finish this episode. We need to stay within the hour, and Ollie is getting a little bit nervous there. Sorry about that, Ollie. So we'll finish up with the Gravel Union Big Debate question, and the question was, what do you prefer? Riding the gravel trails, is it a seat pack or a bar bag? 55% seat pack and 45% bar bag. So the bar bag wins. What's your answer to that question, Tom?
Both.
Both. That's an ideal situation.
I use both.
Very quick last question is, when is your next tandem ride with Martha?
Today, yeah.
Well, thanks a million for being on our live stream, Tom. It's been an honor and a pleasure. Send our regards to Martha. Have a great ride today. Hope to speak to you later. Good luck with all of your ventures. Especially, I really loved the story about the coffee bike in Rwanda. Didn't know that. Thanks for the question coming up. Enjoy your ride. Enjoy your day. To the people who are watching this or in the live stream or watching it back later on, thanks for being on our as a guest on our show. We will be back probably in January. We have a month off at the end of this month, obviously, with Christmas coming up. Check out our website, www.gravelunion.cc. If you don't have a membership yet, rush to your laptop or mobile and get it. It's for free. So thanks a lot again, Mr. Tom Ritchey, for being on this episode. Ollie, thanks for putting all the switches at the right moment, and we all wish you a pleasant day and keep on riding. Bye-bye.
Hey, bye. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
All right.